Hello and welcome to another episode of Natural Bliss Podcast. I am your host, Joyce Wheeler. You're going to want to go ahead and subscribe. Be sure to hit that bell so that you get notifications of new shows, and go ahead and share and like. So I am the owner of Tri-Parish Decluttering Services. I'm in Louisiana. I do virtual coaching and I also do live organizing, decluttering, that kind of thing. Yeah. So anyway, today I have with me Donna Barwald, and she is a professional organizer and the author of This Mess is Making Me Stressed: How to Organize Your Home and Find Peace. Prior to starting her own business, Neatly Arranged Professional Organizing, in 2009, Donna worked in arts management, marketing, sales, fundraising, special events, and teaching in San Jose, San Francisco, New York, and Los Angeles. Nowadays, Donna is a Jewish mother and a recovered perfectionist who helps people organize their homes, offices, and special events in Los Angeles. She also provides virtual consultations online, and Donna is currently working on a new book, This Move is Making Me Stress, which is scheduled to be released by the end of the year. Welcome to the show, Donna.
Thanks for having me.
So how did you get started with decluttering and organizing?
It's kind of a lifelong thing. I started organizing my space around me when I felt very out of control growing up. And I shared a room with my twin sister. And so I never had any space that was actually my own. So when I'd get upset about things, which was often, I would go into our bathroom and just the main bathroom of the house, lock myself in and organize under the sink and make, sense of the chaos kind of thing. And I felt like that made me feel better. And I realized that I had a knack for organizing and not getting overwhelmed over what seemed very overwhelming when my twin sister, who I shared the room with, couldn't do it. I had some skill that she didn't, and it took her all day to even pick things up and take them off and dust and do whatever it had and put them all back. And I wanted to go out and play. It's like, I can't be here all day. I want to go out and play. We can't do that until our room's clean. Let me do it. And so I just sort of took over. And then every space I was in, I just felt like it made me feel better if I could just take over and rearrange it and make it into something that made sense to me, which is okay if you're a kid, not okay if you're doing other spaces other than your own room. I used to get up in the morning early and reorganize our kitchen. And people would get up and say, like, what happened? Where is everything? I just want to have a bowl of cereal and I can't find it. I can't find it. And it is just something that I needed to do for myself. And I realized then that clutter drove me crazy. Anything out of line, out of the way it was supposed to be, out of place, yeah, drove me crazy. And I know now that that's an anxiety thing. And there's a clear link between clutter and stress and mental health. And for my own mental health, I felt like I needed to organize. And then I found out that doing that for other people would make them feel so much better, because even though they wanted it, they couldn't, like my sister, they just need help. And so I started helping people with their own spaces, just for friends and family and whoever else. And then I ran out of friends and family, and I'm like, okay, I guess I could make a business out of this. I was raising kids at the time, and my youngest kid is autistic, although we didn't know it at the time. But it was making it very difficult for me to keep a regular job, because I was getting calls from the principal's office all the time. You got to come get your kid. They didn't know, nobody knew that they were autistic. They just looked very badly behaved. And so I needed something that I could do on my own terms with other moms who understood if your kid's sick or you got to go pick up a kid from school, or things come up and things come up, and moms are more flexible that way. And so I started out organizing moms and people in my stage of life. As I've grown up, it seems like my clients have grown up with me. So now it's about empty nesting and about the sandwich generation and about seniors. And I still have all kinds of good ideas from moms who, I was at a garage sale the other day and I was explaining to somebody how she could set up her playroom and her homeschooling space. And that would be really good. And this is, from my experience as a teacher, and, as a mom and organizer, how this would help. And she just looked at me like so grateful, like she'd never heard these words from anybody or thought that it was so cool that somebody would take their time and just share all this, I don't know, wisdom with her. And I'm thinking, you know, why did I go through it all if not to share what I've experienced? So my big thing is to get people feeling better about themselves and their space, but mostly about themselves, because no matter how successful you are in whatever it is that you're doing for a career or your passion or your creative outlet, if your home isn't the way that you think it should be, and you feel less than or bad about the fact that it's not the way it should be, and it's not operating, and you can't think straight because of the mess, and you can't relax because all you see is the next thing that has to be done, or you get frustrated every morning before you even get out of bed because you can't clear a path to your bathroom. You know what I mean? It's like that's kinds of stuff that just takes away from all the other good stuff happening in your life, and all you can
Right,
focus on is that. And if I can help somebody with that and create what I call a healthy habit of decluttering and organizing, it's a form of self-care. And everybody now
right.
is all about self. And so that's what I do. So
I
that's
like
contribution to the world.
I like the fact that you used habit, because that's what it needs to be. It needs to be a habit, because we're constantly bringing stuff into our house, which causes more clutter if we're not removing stuff. So you're absolutely right. I've been in my house for 14 years. I have a hallway closet. I homeschooled my kids. That's where I kept some of their homeschool stuff. And since I have been in this house 14 years, I cannot tell you how many times I have decluttered and reorganized that closet, just because, like I said, stuff comes in and
Right.
stuff doesn't necessarily go out.
Right. The people think that, oh, I'm going to get organized. Get organized. There's no such thing as get organized. That's like I'm going to get exercised. No, exercise isn't a one and done. You do it for your physical health,
Right,
and mental well-being, right? Constantly. I mean, it's something that you do, like brushing your teeth and whatever. It's not a one and done. So I tell people, look, decluttering isn't a one and done, and organizing
no.
isn't. It's a constant thing that you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's for your own benefit, clearly. It's not just about the way your house looked, it's about the way you feel. But if you
Right,
come into it thinking, I'm going to do it, it's going to be all done, and it's going to stay like that, and I'm going to look like, HGTV reveals, right? When they come home and the camera pans and everything is beautiful and whatever. And I tell people that's not organized, that's staged. And if you think your
yeah,
house is going to look like that every single minute, it means you're not living in it,
right,
because nobody lives in that house. It's there for the moment that the cameras show up. And as soon as you put something down, now your house doesn't look like model home anymore. But it doesn't mean it's not organized.
right,
So the point is that if you want to get back to that beautiful, pristine start of the party looking house, right? The way your house looks when the party starts, right? That means that you get your house to a point where you're organized, that everything has its place, and that no matter what you're doing in life, because we're all doing something and stuff is out because we're doing it, it
right,
can go back into the staged look if you wanted to. Within a couple hours, you can put everything away. There's no piles anymore, because there's a place for everything that's in a pile, and everything that was in that pile belongs with you in your house. It's not like it just came in one day and never left. people talk about clutter, like, what is clutter? You know, it's too much stuff. Well, no, not necessarily. You can have a little bit of stuff and it could be cluttered. The whole point is that clutter for me is anything that's not placed there intentionally. So if you didn't place something intentionally there to live in that space forever, then that's cluttered. And so whether it's because you have too much of it, or it's a duplicate, or it never left when the replacement came in, which is really important, that's the kind of stuff that what I call the wrong stuff. I tell people you don't have too much stuff, you have the wrong stuff, and the wrong stuff is affecting your mental health. And the wrong stuff is stuff that you're clutter blind to. You just don't see it anymore. It's been a pile there for so long, you don't even know that it was there. And it happens to everybody. It happened to me. I was actually organizing at a client's house, and I put my stuff by the door to take it out. And evidently I never did. And it's been sitting there at the door. And I've been there so many times since then. And I've been looking for this stuff in my own house, going, I must have left it at somebody's house. And the other day I go back to this client, it's a long-term client. And she said, is this yours? And I looked and I was like, oh yeah, I was wondering where that was. And I've walked past it because it's in the doorway so many times since. I mean, it's been months. And so people become clutter blind. They just don't look at what they've got. And then when you clear that space, you know, all of a sudden you've got what I call room to breathe. The air feels different. We've talked about this. The air feels different. There's a flow, the energy is going. And you just feel better being in that space. And it's really hard to describe to people if they've never felt it before, like describing love. How do you describe being in love, right? If you've never felt it, really hard. You kind of think you're in it because you've heard other people's descriptions when it happens to you. And you're like, oh, I think this is what they're talking about. But you don't realize how it's going to feel until you do it. And then when you do it, it's life-changing. And then you want to stick with it, that healthy habit, so that you can continue to feel it. You know, it's like getting a massage once. Well, you want a massage all the time because it feels good.
Or getting some
And
dopamine.
yeah, and so this is like that. And so trying to explain to people, and then physically having it possible for them to do it, because usually when you need it the most is when you're least able to do it. You know, the people, my kids both have ADHD, one is autistic, so they're both neurodivergent. There's all these neurodivergent influencers out there doing reels on Facebook and Instagram and everything, talking about the experience. And people are saying, you know you're neurodivergent when the thing that you need the most is the thing that you can't give yourself, because you need clean and orderly. That's how you feel best. And yet it's really not, you're not able to do it, because that's what happens when you have ADHD or autism or something with, you don't have those executive function skills. And so planning and organizing and all of that kind of stuff, prioritizing, goes out the window.
So let me ask you this. Were your children able to stay organized when they were living at home with you? Did you find a method? Did you find a method that worked for them?
Yes, well, I found things that do help. Hold on just a second, because I think my plug just came out of my laptop, and I gotta plug it back in so it doesn't die on us. Hold on. Yes, we're real people too. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we're not perfect. My best expression, the thing I'm most noted for is done is better than perfect. That's why I say I'm a recovering perfectionist, because when you're a perfectionist, you don't want to do anything half-assed. You want it to be perfect. And so you kind of wait until you have this chunk of time where you can actually get everything to be, exactly the way you want it. And then you realize as you become a mom that you're never going to have that time. And you just have to live with everything being less than perfect, but at least it's done. So we're doing this, we're taping it. There's no retakes. It's done.
No.
Better than perfect.
I'm a perfectionist too. And when I had my daughter, I found it very hard to accept things that, well, we have a mess over here, it has to be cleaned up. You know, that has to be done right now. And then as I had more kids, it just became, you know what, it gets done when it gets done. I'll just be happy it's done. And I had lived in a basement apartment and my in-laws lived upstairs. So we shared the washer and dryer. So there were times that she would come down to use the washer and dryer. And if I had clothes in the dryer, she would go ahead and fold them. And she had asked me one time if I went back and I refolded them. And I told her, I said, yeah, I did. I did. But in all fairness to her, once I had my last child, I was just like, I don't care how it's folded, it's done. We're just
Right.
we're just gonna put it away. There's more than one way of folding a towel.
Right.
Like
And you think about that too. It's so funny. I just did this for the client. I was making room and I'm like, you know, it's never going to look like this again because she doesn't fold her towels like this, but this is how it's going to fit. So maybe if if I do it and she can see how I do it, it'll work out that way. But then after a while, it's like you can't always have the folds facing out. Sometimes you have to have it showing not pretty, but it's done. So at least it's done. But you asked me about my kids and if I could keep, if they could learn to be organized. No, but they can get better at it. So here's what I do. And I actually wrote this in my book. I have what I call the 12-step program for cleaning your room. One of the things that's really hard for kids or anybody is that when you say something like enormous, like go clean your room, they have no idea what that means. To one person, it may mean that nothing's on the floor. To another person, it may mean that all the books are alphabetized, you know, by author, or you know what I mean? It's like everybody's
right,
got their idea of clean or organized or whatever. And so I would teach my kids a method to get it done so that it looks better and that you can move around. And so it's safe. Like if there's a fire, you can get out the door and you're not tripping over everything. And then I would write down the steps. Also, I taught my daughter also because I knew, I said, Gianna, when you share a room with somebody, they're not going to be happy. She didn't have to share a room. I always did, but she had her own room. And I said, you're going to have to learn to be a good roommate. And one thing is you're going to have to keep the bathroom clean. So I'm going to teach you how to clean a bathroom. You'll make friends that way because the worst thing is when your roommates can't keep your joint bathrooms clean.
right,
So I wrote down all the steps. So I write down all the steps exactly on what to do first, second, third, whatever, and make a checklist. And you need to do that with people who are ADHD. You need to break it down. And so that they can just follow along. And if they get distracted, they can come back to the list and they know where they're going. So I taught my daughter how to clean the bathroom. And I really miss the fact that she doesn't live at home anymore because I can't teach that to my other kid, and now I have to clean the bathrooms. What a bummer. But to do a room, I tell people, you know, first you make your bed, then you pick, and then you put a towel down on your bed, and then you pick everything up from the floor onto the bed. So now at least the floor is clean, and you can live with that. Then you can sort what's on the bed into different things, and then the dirty clothes go over here. You know, the things that go somebody else's into somebody else's room go over on this side or whatever, and then you can deal with it like that. But once you have the floor clean and the bed made, even though you're putting stuff on top of the bed, it just seems like the room is cleaner and you can concentrate better because you don't see all this distractions all over the place. Then you can just deal with, you know, what's on hand. So there
right,
are ways to teach them. I'm not great at it with my own kids. I'm sure my methods have helped other people and other kids because it wasn't their mom telling them. It
right.
was it was the organizer working with them. But yeah, that's the hardest thing is when your kids just don't have the organizing genes as you do, and you can keep it in check while they're living with you, and or close the door or do whatever. When you have to go stay with them, I just went to go stay with my daughter for she was recuperating, and she didn't want me there and I didn't want to be there, but I had to just like organize her house because I had to be in that space, and things just look off to me, you know. So I rearranged the room, the living room, and I did little things that they just like were they were fine with, you know, college students, and they don't care, or they do care, but they don't care enough to do anything about it. And I got the landlord to reimburse me for some easy things. And all of a sudden their house looks a million times better. They feel better. You know, nothing's worse than feeling physically hurting and your house being in a place where you have to be and it's horrible to be in, right?
Right.
So anyway, easy fixes. She appreciates it when I'm there. She can't always do it for herself, but she tries. She knows what she can do, but you know, creative types, ADHD people are generally creative, and they're off
Right.
doing the next thing. And you know, they're looking forward, not backwards, and putting away is looking backwards. So they're just forward looking on to the next thing, and everything else stays where it is. At least you always know what your kids have been up to because you can see the trail. I know exactly what the kid who's still at home does all day. I can see, oh, you had, you know, Cheerios for breakfast, and then you had this, and you worked on that, and you know, because it's all left out. So like little
One thing that I've noticed with those of us in the decluttering and organizing industry is that, you know, you called it a gift earlier, and that's what it is. It comes naturally. For the majority of people in the decluttering and organizing business are just gifted with this ability to be able to see things and to be able to know how to place things and make sure that things are balanced. So you don't have a bunch of big stuff over here and a bunch of little stuff over here. You know,
right.
it's spread out to where you can see a balance. It's uniform. But I have noticed that in talking to a lot of organizers that this is something that we've just done. We've done it since we were young. Yeah, I remember one organizer saying that she'd been folding clothes since she was 3 years old.
Yeah.
You know, she came up with a method for folding clothes. But it just seems like either you're born with it or you're not. You know, and we can teach it, and we can figure out what people need for organizing, because everybody needs something different. For me, it's I like stuff behind closed doors, but it has to be organized. And I'm like micro organizer to where I might organize within a container, have a container and I have more containers in that container, say, with the craft supplies. You know, so we've got our googly eyes and our pipe cleaners and whatnot. You know, and then you have other people who they want to see their stuff.
Right.
So they, you know, they want to see it, they want it out there. You have other people where you walk into the house, everything's all neat and tidy and clean, but don't open up a door or a drawer because it's piled to the hilt, or things are going to come tumbling out.
My biggest thing is I don't want to be aggravated. I have a very low threshold for aggravation.
I hear you.
And so anything that aggravates me, I know that I can improve upon. So that's usually when my organizing happens, you know, and I tell people another one of my catchphrases, aggravation is motivation. So if I'm looking for, you know, a coffee mug in the morning, okay, and they're all bunched up and I can't get to anything, and there's all this old stuff in there, and nobody wants little tiny cups anymore, and they might as well have the big, you know, nice things that feel good in their hands. You know, early in the morning, the things that aggravate me the most are the first things that I'm going to put on my list to fix, because I have enough trouble in my life. I don't want to be aggravated first thing in the morning.
Right.
And so that's when I usually will organize something so that it's easier to get to, easier to find, easier to access, less of it in there to jam up the drawers so they slide better, that kind of stuff. That's what makes it, that's the motivation for me. And so I tell people, keep a list. I use my phone all the time,
See, now
I use the
I don't do
notes.
good with lists. I do not do well with lists. I have tried lists and
Oh, well,
just,
I just put notes in my phone of things like, so that when find myself with an extra spare minute. Your appointment was for, 1 o'clock, but it had to be delayed till 2 o'clock, whatever it is. Now I've got this whole hour. I thought I was gonna be doing something else. I go to my phone and I say, let's see what was on the list that I needed, to take care of. And I can do that in this hour. Great. Now I've just found time to do something that otherwise you would think, you put it off because there's no time to do it. But I just found an hour. It was given to me as a gift. So now I'm going to take care of that kind of thing. If I'm, going, it's going to rain and I'm looking for my umbrella and I can't find the umbrella and all the coats have fallen off their hangers and, whatever, as somebody else was rummaging through and everything is on the floor and the coat closet's a mess. I can take the coat that I need right now. Okay, fine. I don't have time because I got to get out the door, but I'm going to write it down or talk it into my phone or do whatever, make a note that when you get another spare minute, go back and clean the coat closet because it's going to aggravate you again the next time you have to go in there and you see it all a mess and you're frustrated
right,
because you don't have time to do it then. So put
right.
it on the list as something you can do now.
So,
You can do things in every minute
right.
that you have.
I want to share a story about when me and my husband first got together because I'm so anal about if I take something out, I put it, when I'm done using it, I put it back right away.
Mhm.
My husband, we were living back in Tennessee and he had taken some pot holders out of the drawer and he was using them or not using them. I don't know because he doesn't put anything away. So how am I supposed to know if you're using them or not? Well, anyway, I went and I put them away. I come into the kitchen, there's pot holders all over the kitchen. I'm like, what is this? He's like, well, you like putting away pot holders. So I figured, give you something to do. It was amusing. I wasn't mad about it. I was amused that he thought like that. Well, she likes to put pot holders away, so we'll throw them around the room. Let her take care of that.
No, but my husband does the same thing, which is funny. He cleans up after me before I've used the things. Like I take things out because I'm going to use them, right? You get it all ready so that you don't have to go grab things when you need it, right?
Right.
And so he sees all this stuff out on the counter and he's like putting things away. I'm like, hello, I'm just about to use that. What are you doing?
That
And he
would
does
be
it
me.
all, and he does it all the time.
That would be me. I'm gonna come up
Stop.
behind you. Just like my daughter came over one time and I was making some labels and I made the comment that my labels were not in order. She said, you mean your labels are organized? I said, yeah, my labels are organized. It's like everything has to be organized. I just find it's so much easier to live when you are organized, when you take something out and you use it, you're done with it, and you put it away right away and you put it back in the place where it goes. So when I need it the next time, I know where to go look. Unlike
Right.
my husband who goes out into the garden, and even though we have a place for all the tools, can't find the spade. It's like, well, where'd it go? Where'd it go? It's like, well, where did you use it? And I'm always telling him, I said, you put things back right away. I taught my kids that too. I said, if you put your things away in the same place where they go all the time, and as a mom, everything had a place, you'll know exactly where it is. And that's the problem with not being organized is people are spending money because they're not organized.
Oh
They're
yeah, they go out and buy things that they know they have, and then you go organize this person. Again, I have a friend. I have lots of friends with ADHD. They seem to need me the most, right? So I go and I'm finding, 6, 10, 12 of the same thing. I'm like, how many of these do you need? He goes, well, I couldn't find it when I needed it. I'm like, okay, well then you put it away, you label it, you do something, whatever, and
Right.
then it's already there. But again, they leave things out and they have to go spend all kinds of money. Then they don't have money for an organizer. That's what kills me. It's like, well, I could have paid for myself 5 times over because you wouldn't have had to buy things a
Well,
hundred
and it's
times.
not just that, it's, bills. People seem to have a real hard time with paperwork, and as not as an organizer and declutterer, but just as a person who is naturally like this. I understand we're all not like this. We're all different. I get it. That's fine. It's great. But for me, sometimes I have a hard time when somebody has an issue doing something. I can't understand why, because it's like, but it's so easy.
Right. Yeah. And you don't realize the things that come natural to you
Right,
are difficult for other people. And I mean, I found that out actually in the gym. So you would think that the things are hard for everybody. And you find out that like there are things I can do that I can do all day long and don't cause me any kind of effort in the gym. And and other people, it's like extremely hard for them. And then other people can do things that I just can't. And it's not like I'm not athletic or I'm not, whatever. It's everybody has their own talents
we're all created differently.
but here's the thing, it's like people feel bad when they don't have organizing skills as if there's something wrong with them. They
No,
think
there's
that
not.
they're somehow deficient. And I'm telling people, I said, look, if you can't paint like Picasso or compose like Mozart, do you feel bad about yourself as a person? Like you must be a terrible person because you don't have this artistic or musical talent? Well, organizing is the same exact way. So you shouldn't feel bad that you don't have that because
Right,
it's just exactly that. It's a talent that some people have. It's a skill that comes naturally to people or doesn't. You can be taught just like you can learn to paint.
right,
You'll never be a master probably if you didn't have that innate talent, but you can get better at it. Same thing, you can learn to play piano, you can get better at it. And so there are certain things that you can get better at if somebody just works with you to find out how you're thinking now and
mhm.
then adapt that into your own language that you can then improve upon whatever is going on. Most of the time people though, they just don't um, think about getting rid of things. This is what
That's a
confuses me
big
the most.
thing. That's a
It
big
can
issue.
I have this concept people laugh at. I call it crap equilibrium. Okay. Basically, it's you bring one thing in, one thing has to go out because your cabinets, your closets, your house, any space you're in can only hold so much, right? You can't just
Right.
keep adding without subtracting. So I call it crap equilibrium. And when you bring something home, you buy something at the store. Okay, so like or you're at Home Depot and you see something that works better than what you've got. Okay. Or you're at Costco and you see dishes or pots or towels, anything nicer than what you have. You'd rather use the new ones, right? So a lot of people bring home the new things and they just sort of shove it in a closet along with the old stuff. Or they never get it into the closet to begin with and it sits out. And then you go, and then when you do declutter, organize, clean up, whatever, you find packages of new things that they've never used, that they bought whenever, years ago maybe, and it never got used because then they put it down somewhere, then got buried and they could never find it again. But if when you bring something new home, say it's nice fluffy towels, those are the towels you want to reach for. Right? You don't want to use the
Right,
threadbare ones. If you did, you wouldn't have bought the nice new ones, right?
right,
So you're always going to use your favorites. And this is important for people to know. You're always going to use your favorites. So why keep anything around that isn't your favorite? So if you buy something to replace the threadbare, worn, torn, stained, any broken, any kind of thing that has now become useless or less than ideal if you have a better one. Instead of keeping the old things, you trade out the new one for the old one. And it seems so simple, but people don't do it. And stuff gets shoved to the back.
Mhm.
And then they
Right.
can't open the drawers. And then the drawers, you know, are stuffed open. And then everything is left out because they can't get to the drawer underneath because that one doesn't close. I mean, structurally, there's so many reasons why there's clutter and why things don't work the way they're supposed to.
Right.
And
You know,
when you
my
figure it
husband, my husband and I just had this conversation the other day because he goes out, he goes and he buys t-shirts,
out,
but he doesn't take any of them out. And I'm like, dude, I can't fit anything else in here. You got to get some stuff out of here. Because then I started leaving them on top of the dresser, but I don't like that. We have a dresser here, you know.
right,
You need to go ahead and organize for the space that you have. You have this big of a drawer, this deep of a drawer, whatever fits in here. That's how many t-shirts you get, dude. You know,
right.
everything else has to go. And the thing is too, is that he'll keep tattered and dirty shirts to work outside. But then he'll go ahead and wear one of the good ones, and that one lands up tattered and dirty. So I'm just like, you know,
I tell people, keep the best, reduce the rest. And it's okay to have backups, but when your backups have backups, that's too much
yeah,
because it never gets used. And if it never gets
right.
used, what's the point of it cluttering your space to begin with? Because that throws off everything.
Well,
So
and
like my,
that's the thing is that he's got t-shirts on the bottom of the drawer that he hasn't worn in years. You know, and that's the thing, you know, and yeah, I could go ahead and I could take those out, you know, but it's not my stuff. I
right,
don't feel like it's my job to declutter his stuff. That's
I feel like it's my job
no,
for your husband, but no, that's the thing. Is like eventually you get to a point where um it wears off on them, which is nice. Like I was gone to stay with my daughter while she was recuperating from a back problem, and my husband took that time when I was gone to clear out his dresser, which was so great because I was thrilled. His closet, and I come back and things are all nice and whatever, and he does exactly what I would have done. And I said, you know, and he's all proud of himself. It's like, look, I said, wow, 25 years, it really pays off. I've been
well,
doing
you know,
everything.
when it comes to my husband, I know what I have to do. I have to take all the t-shirts out of the dresser and be like, look, we're going through these one by one. You decide what you want and what you're going to get rid of because you can't. And I even told him about the one in, one out rule. You buy a t-shirt, one of those t-shirts has to go.
Right.
We can only fit so many t-shirts in this drawer, and you keep buying more and nothing's going out. Something has to go out. We can't keep adding more stuff and more stuff and more stuff. And that's where things really get cluttered because, as I just said, I started to just put his t-shirts on top of the dresser. Well, he's fine with that. I'm not.
Right.
Then next thing you know, we're going to have a big pile of t-shirts sitting on the dresser. Well, we've got a dresser here that's full of more t-shirts. Something's got to go.
Yeah. And that's the thing that people need to incorporate in their life, just in general. When you buy something, the best time to organize a drawer is when you're putting something new in it. So you buy a new tablecloth, you buy new pots, you buy new anything, you know, the new thing goes in, the backup to the backup goes out. There's a reason
Right,
you bought these new things, because you don't like what you've got. So why would you keep it
right,
if you don't like it?
right. Exactly.
Especially when you've replaced it already. Now there's really no reason to keep it. And if people just did that alone for everything and anything that they've got, their life would be simplified. The clutter would be tremendously reduced. And
Well, and
that's
not only that, but it wouldn't get so far out of hand to where they were overwhelmed, because now I've got to tackle all this stuff,
Right.
and if they
That's what
get,
it's like, don't do your whole house. Like everybody says, oh, I've got to do the kitchen. Well, don't do the kitchen, do the pot drawer or cabinet or whatever it's at.
a cabinet,
You know?
yeah,
Yeah, the other thing is that people try to make spaces work for things that they don't work for, and there's a reason why then it's never going to be organized, is because it's not meant to be there. You know,
right,
people try to, I see these things in the decluttering groups. People will show pictures of a space and it's like, I've organized this 5 times and I can't get, you know, it never stays away. My first thought always is, maybe it's not supposed to go in that cabinet. Maybe something else is better for that cabinet.
right,
And this stuff should be in a different thing. And because when a room doesn't work, when there's clutter somewhere, okay, let's just say constant clutter, not just because you came home for vacation and you didn't unpack your bags. That happens to everybody. But if it's a continual problem, generally the room isn't set up right.
mm,
And that's something that I think people can use our professional skills at, because they just can't see any other way to do it. And that from experience, from the talent that we had that led us to become a professional, and then from the experience that you get from being a professional and seeing, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of places, then you realize that there's better ways of doing things, and people just don't know because that's not their business. I'm sure they're great at what they do, and
right,
I know nothing about it. So
right,
here's, you know, tips that I can give people. So that's the first thing I look, is the infrastructure. And also if people want to like organize, I don't know, they say they're going to organize this room. And I'm like, you can't just organize that room, you know, or whatever it is. I said, it's a holistic thing. Like when you disrupt this one room now what are you going to do with all that other stuff? And they get frustrated because they think that, you know, why should I organize it all? Because now all the junk is just moving from place to place. Well, kind of, yeah, if you're keeping it, you
right,
know, if you're not keeping it, it has moved to a box that now should be, you know, on the donation truck or in your car going to the donation place,
right,
or, you know, or wherever it's supposed to go. But people feel like that's not a natural thing, and that's just what it is. You know, it's like saying, you know, I cook and I cook and I cook, and you know, these dishes never get washed. It's like, right, because you're cooking and you're eating and you're living, and that's just what happens. And so a room that,
right,
or a closet that you're continually organizing, it's because its purpose has changed
right,
often. So that's why you have to redo it. But sometimes it's just not the right space for it to be there. And then you have to think creatively about, like, why isn't this room working? And what else could it be? And a lot of times people have no idea what a space is supposed to be for. So
right,
that's the other thing that is I do, is I tell people all the time, is like, okay, it's a junk room now, but what would you like it to be? Let's dream. You know, is it going to be an office, an exercise room, a craft room, you know, a guest room that's also my office? You know, you have to have the plan on what it's going to be, and then you create that room as opposed to just cleaning up the junk room. You can also get buy-in from everybody else to help, because people are like, you know, I have to do this all by myself. You know, my husband will never help me. You know, my kids don't help. I'm like, well, get them to buy into the vision of what it's
right,
going to be. Don't just say, help me clean up, you know, Gianna's room because she doesn't live here anymore. You say, I'd like to create an office. Can you help me buy? And then give them something specific to do. Help
right,
me. Is it as specific as, I need you to clear space in the garage so I can bring this piece of furniture there temporarily so I can redo this room and make it to what I want it to be. As specific as you can get, will help get buy-in from everybody else to help you create the rooms that you want. That's really important. Just like when you tell somebody, clean up your room. What does that mean? It's huge, it sounds exhausting, and I'm gonna go take a nap and avoid it at all costs. If you just say, pick up all the dirty clothes, or pick up all the clothes from the floor and put it on your bed. That I can do. I know what clothes are, I know what my bed is, I can go pick up clothes and put it on a bed. Now, I'm looking at the clothes. Now look at the clothes and smell them if you need to and tell me if they're dirty, and then put them in the hamper. Okay, I know what the hamper is. I know what I know what the criteria for dirty clothes are now, because you just told me, and now I can do that. But the more specific you are, the easier it gets, the less overwhelming it is. And because people who are already overwhelmed by the mess that they've created are unable to get out of that mess until you make it very easy for them to go through the steps that it takes to do that, and not make them feel bad about it. It's like, whatever, it
Right.
is what it is, now we're gonna fix it.
No,
you
because,
know,
like you were saying, just because you have a hard time decluttering or organizing, I'm not going to say can't, just because you have a hard time doing something doesn't mean that you're bad at it. It doesn't mean that you're lazy. It doesn't mean any, you should not feel any negative way towards that. It's not you. It's our society, because society wants to put all of us in this box, and everybody, even if you're a triangle, you need to fit inside this box. Okay, so it's not squares only, it's rectangles, circles, and oblongs, and anything else. I don't care what shape you are, you have to fit in this box. And our society does it to us. And that's why we feel so frustrated with ourselves, because we're listening to what society says. Well, there's more than one way to exercise. There's more than one way to fold laundry, more than one way to wash dishes, more than one way to iron a shirt, more than one way of communicating. There's more than one way of doing just about everything that we do on a daily basis. And so what if you do it differently? My kids did math differently, but I told them, I said, if you ever go to school, they're not going to let you do this. Even though your answer's right, they're going to mark it wrong because you didn't show your work appropriately, which I think is a bunch of garbage. They got the right answer,
right.
So let's talk about your book.
Okay, sure.
So you wrote a book.
This mess is making me stress. How to
So,
organize your home and find peace.
so chapter 2 is listen to your clutter. What's that about?
Right. So clutter, like we talked about earlier, means something different to everybody.
Right.
And people accumulate clutter for different reasons. And when you realize what your personal clutter is, what you've got going on, then you can identify the habit that happened to get it that way, or the mindset that happened to get that clutter that way. And that's the first thing to understand in order to declutter and to create a habit that doesn't allow clutter to accumulate or stay there long enough or whatever. So, for example, if your clutter is a bunch of stuff that you've never taken out of the packages before, right? It's a bunch of stuff that then you realize, okay, let's say I'm a shopper. I like bargains. Retail therapy is good for me. I feel better when I go shopping. I feel good about myself when I find a bargain, because it means I'm smart or whatever, and
Frugal.
savvy.
I'm
And for, all these kinds of positive things about me I get because I can find bargains. But I have nobody to shop for anymore because my kids are gone and I'm still doing the same thing, and I'm buying massive quantities of things that I have no place to put because I now live in a 2-bedroom apartment instead of a 5-bedroom house, and I still buy the huge things from Costco of toilet paper, You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
there's two of us living in the house instead of six, and I still have the same shopping habits. So if that's what's happening with you, if that's the kind of clutter you have, that's what your clutter is saying to you is, I need to change my shopping habits or adjust or understand where that's coming from. And maybe I can do something else. So a lot of people talk about the not buying things for a month or whatever. Now, I've never had that problem. I don't like going into stores.
no,
Um,
me neither.
and and so I don't have a problem buying anything. I'm probably the most frugal person you could imagine. But my clutter happens to be well, a lot of paper, because I got projects going on all the time. I'm very creative and I got projects happening. And so if that's what's going on, you have to understand a lot of times creative people and people with ADHD, they have 10 things going on at once. So then you have to come up with a system that gets you to completion on some of these things, or you prioritize some of the projects, or you have a way to keep track of however many projects are happening. And then that will eliminate or reduce at least some of that clutter. Sometimes people's clutter is the stuff that we talked about, is that they have this idea in mind that, oh, I can fix that. So they have all this broken stuff sitting around because, you know, they feel wasteful throwing something away that can be fixed. But if it could be fixed, or if they wanted to fix it, they would have done it already. So they
Right,
just like the idea, the fact that they're not going to contribute to landfill because somehow that makes them feel more virtuous or whatever, and that they're going to fix it. So that's what I mean by that's what your clutter is saying to you, is like, you have to understand what kinds of things make clutter for you in your house, in your world environment, and then counteract that mindset or those habits that create that. A lot of times it's just, you know, drop and dash. We're busy taking kids everywhere. We come out of the car, they throw their stuff down, it's time for dinner, and now I'm exhausted and I have to go to sleep. And that's like over scheduled. Your clutter means you're over scheduled, and you don't take time, build in time to put things away, or to get things to the right place, or you know, stuff like that. So you can tell by what people have going on, by what habits have created that. And then you want to develop better habits that don't create that, because that clutter isn't working for them. It's not because I say it's clutter, it's because they don't like it, which is why they come to me or go
right.
to a decluttering group or whatever. It's like people are not happy about it. So let's find out what it is, what caused it, you know, what habits that we can now create to counteract the bad habits that got us into this place in the thing. So it's sentimental stuff. You know, the parents passed and they took everything they could from their mom's house, and it's now sitting in their house, and then it's just too overwhelming and emotional to go through the stuff yet. And that's what's causing the clutter. You know, so you have to know what's causing it so you know how to address it.
Where can
That's
people find your book?
my book is online in every online bookstore. You can and on Amazon. And
Can you show the cover
uh,
again? Could you show
I
us the book
can.
again?
There, this mess is making me stress. You can also go to my website, and there's a link to the Amazon from my website. My website is neatlyarranged.com. My twin sister calls it nearly deranged, but it's neatly arranged. .com. And then anybody who buys the book can get a free hour consultation with me. Wherever you are in the world, you can show me what you've got, like a problem spot, and I can help you troubleshoot. I can just, you know, sit with you while you go through things. I can, talk about creative solutions to any kind of issues you have. I can just give you a pep talk. Whatever, you get an hour of me every time you buy, whoever buys a book. You just have to tell me in an email what the last line of the book is. And I can tell you already, I've said it probably 3 times already.
Don't say it.
in the course of this conversation. So so that will motivate people. I just really want my life to have counted for something, and that's
Right,
why I wrote what I know. And already I can see, it helps people when I make comments on people's posts all over the place. I just throw out some little nugget, and people are like, that helped me so much. This is great. I'm like, okay, great. I'm so happy.
right.
If I can make one person's life a little less chaotic, I'm very happy to do that, because mental health
That's what
is
it's all
everything.
about.
Yep. So,
It's helping other
and
people.
I appreciate you giving me time to talk, and hopefully people can listen to this while they declutter and get inspired, and maybe make it a regular thing. I think decluttering podcasts are the next big thing, so people can feel motivated while they work. Because, I don't even know, is it in the last 5 years, 10 years, declutter has become a word? I never heard it before. All of a sudden,
Right,
it's everywhere.
right.
Um, and I want people to know, though, that it's not about the way your house looks. It's not about at all looking like Pinterest worthy or HGTV or any of that stuff.
Home and
It's about
gardens.
it's about how you feel, because I want people to feel proud and happy to invite people over, and to not wait another second to have people over, because, we were isolated for so long during COVID. Um, and people tended, like me, have now made it a habit to stay home, but will jump at the chance to go visit anybody. I don't want you to not invite people over because you feel bad about the way your home looks. First of
Right.
all, we don't care. We just want to go somewhere. But
Well,
second
that's
of
like my
all, we
daughter.
want you to feel proud.
That's like my daughter. I'll go by her house and she'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry it's such a mess." And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I came here to see you. I'm not looking around your house to
Right.
see what's out of place." And her house isn't a mess.
That's what's so funny. Everybody has a different standard of what a mess is.
Right,
And everybody thinks that their house has got to be the worst I've ever seen, right? When I come in as an organizer. And I have to tell them, no, 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 not a chance.
I
They
had
look at me
one
like this
client.
thing,
I had
and
one
I'm laughing.
client.
I'm like, people would love it if their house looked like yours. And you think this is a mess. Okay. Well, if
I
it
had
bothers you, I'm happy to help.
I had
But
one client tell me that the minute I walked in her house, I would turn around and run. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Everything is fine. But we are at the top of the hour, Donna. It's been a pleasure having you on today. And I loved
thank you.
chatting with you. And so until next time, have a good day wherever you are in the
Thank you
world.
so much.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.